What's up? How you doing? Here we are. Beautiful day. It's warm and a bit slightly humid. I don't know what's going on. It hasn't been that way for years, but I can feel it. Anyway, I have here Halloween mask, Popeye the Sailor. This is what we wore in the old days, things like that. I'm a fan of that cartoon. I've always been. When I was a kid, I would get all excited when Popeye was coming on. Something about it, something. Even though these are from the 30s, they're really old cartoons. But the music, everything, and it would get me all excited. Here comes Popeye. And I don't even know why they picked spinach as giving him power. I mean, spinach doesn't give you anything like that. Okay, it has iron, and so what? What do you think? Because it has iron, you can lift heavy things? I don't think so. And I read one time, many years ago, that the scientists that did the calculations for the amount of iron in spinach put the decimal point on the wrong spot. And they made it, originally they thought iron in spinach was like huge amounts. Spinach had a lot of iron in it, but it has iron, but not like what they thought. So, and in those days, because iron promotes red blood cell growth or development, they said, well, that's, you don't get tired as easy, because anemia makes you feel exhausted. And so they said, okay, well, you take the spinach, you build up on red blood cells, and you feel stronger. So this guy just became a spinach guy. And I bet you in the old days, mothers would say, eat your spinach so you can be like Popeye. They used it in Rocky IV. So anyway, but there's no difference. I remember one time, many years ago, I was probably about 8 years old. My mother had these cans of spinach in the cupboard. We never ate them. They were there for years and years and years. I wouldn't have eaten them after, because they were probably expired 10 times over. And so one day I went and I grabbed one of those spinach things, and get a muffler there, mama's boy. So anyway, I grabbed one of these things and I put it in my shirt, and I played all day. I remember it was a Saturday. I ran everywhere, and occasionally I would make sure it was still around. And for some reason, I felt by carrying that it gave me the option of getting that extra strength with the big forearms. But I never opened it up. I do eat spinach, but not that much. I don't want to get rusty eating too much of that, but it causes oxidation. But I do have it once in a blue moon. If there's a blue moon, I get the spinach out. So anyway, how ridiculous is that? I was running around all day with a 16-ounce can of spinach tucked in my shirt and my pants. Ridiculous. But anyway, I loved everything about that cartoon. And olive oil, man, eat some meat. That 90-pound, no curves at all. Ridiculous, but that's the way he liked her. And then I think 1980, Robin Williams made a Popeye movie. I saw it back then. I think I thought it was okay. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't. But I was a fan. I haven't mentioned Popeye at all, but it was pretty cool. Yeah, that guy there always ate a burger, and the babies showing up. Brutus. Now he looked strong. And here's the thing, those guys never ate spinach, yet they had a constant strength. Popeye was kind of like weak, unless he ate the spinach. So, but then when he did eat it, everything, it was like ding, 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 and biceps and everything, and he had chest, very strong. But like I said, spinach has nothing to do with increasing strength. Steroids. Sorry if you want to do steroids or something like that, but not spinach. So today I went hiking. I went over at Vasquez Rock hiked for about an hour. You know, not all day, 1 hour. It was all right. Nice and hot there, always hot. And then I didn't have water with me, so I was really thirsty. But when I left, I went and I bought 2 big Gatorades. 2 big Gatorades because, you know, Gatorade has all that stuff, the electrolytes, potassium, salts, all that. So it replenishes that which you have sweated out, or which you have sweated it out. But yeah, I always enjoy going to Vasquez Rock, unless they're filming. If they're filming, I'm not a fan of that. I have to park somewhere else. I have to walk around and go the other way. I like parking in the back. That would be the back. And I will say this. Oh, here come the crows again. Crows are at it. I will say this. You know, they have those portable bathrooms that people that work on construction sites have. And I think this is probably the first time, because I had to use it. I just had to take a leak. I don't go in there for other stuff. But anyway, I had to take a leak, and I went in there, and it smelled clean. The water, it looks like they had just changed it out. It was brand new water. No turtles floating around in there. It was just blue and clean and just brand new. And it was warm in there. And I was thinking to myself, you know what? If it wasn't for the fact that this was a toilet in here, I could take a nap in here right now. It was that comfortable. But yeah, water was nice and clean, which in that way I could use that. But you go sometimes in some of these things and they're exactly like an airplane toilet. Airplane toilets. I was going to mention that the other day. Airplane toilets. Why can't they make the plane just 2 feet, 3 feet longer, right, to accommodate a bigger bathroom? You know, I'm not talking about having stalls, you know, that go down like 15 sets. I'm talking about make it 3 feet longer than it, you know, actually is right now, and make it a little roomier on there. You know, a little roomier, bigger sink. You know, maybe automated, you know, water dispenser. I don't want to touch those things. Everybody going in there and touching everything. Get streptococcus crawling all over the place in there. So yeah, I would make the plane 3 feet longer, or take out one of the seating areas. You know, 2 first-class seats here and 2 coach seats. Take those out. You're gonna lose a couple of bucks. You're gonna lose, big deal. You know, charge everybody another $5. I would pay another $10 if the bathroom was bigger, right? You know, it's not like somebody would say, you know what, I would have flown if it was $10 cheaper. I'd rather have a bigger bathroom and a couple of less seats, or like I said, extend the plane 3 feet longer and make that area the 3 feet. 3 feet plus whatever they have now is good enough for a bathroom, right? But they get these teeny weeny bathrooms. You go in there, plus they're at an angle, you're kind of standing like this. I was on Lufthansa, not the heist one. That was a while ago, but I was on one of those newer planes, Airbus. The big ones was the 380, and they actually have a window in the bathroom. And I was thinking, that's not really a good idea. That just delays people in there. You know, they're looking, you know, especially people that sit on the aisle, and they don't look out as much. You go in there and you're like, oh, this is an opportunity to look out. And then you look out and you kind of get hypnotized and you can't leave. And then people are like, what's he doing in there that long? You're not doing anything. You're just watching outside. But yeah, they actually had a window in there. When I was little and I flew on TWA, when I went in the bathroom, it felt like it was a good size. And I'll tell you something funny. So I'm on TWA. I'm about 6 years old. And we're flying overseas on TWA 747. And now I'm a little kid, right? But they separated me from my mother. My mother and my sister sat way on the other side of the plane, and me, they put me with some young stranger guy. You know, he was like, I want to say, the way I remember him, he was probably no more than 22, right? So they put me next to him, and I had just gotten a haircut, and in those days I hated getting haircuts. I wanted my hair to be long, right? So my father said, you know, let's go get a haircut. You're gonna be gone for a while for the summer. Let's go get a haircut so it doesn't look sloppy when you go over there, and then it gets long, and you know, you don't know anybody there to cut it for you. So I agreed. I went, and they cut it really short. You know, they cut it short, which I don't mind now, but back then I wanted my hair long. So I had a theory back then that if you traveled at a high speed in an airplane, your hair grew faster. That's what I thought. You know, I'm a little kid back then. And I thought if plants grow faster with water, then maybe if I had moisture, the hair will grow longer, because I wanted my hair to be longer when I landed. So this guy that I was sitting next to, was a very nice guy, talked to me, you know, I mean, he was looking at me, what's this kid doing, traveling alone? And like I said, my mother was way on the other side of a 747. So me and him were talking, and every hour, I had it timed, every hour I would get up, I would go to the bathroom. And back then the 747s, they didn't have just one or two bathrooms, they had a row. They had this section where it was like a bunch of bathrooms, and I would go in there and wet my hair as if I had taken a shower. I'd go in there and get it really wet. I'd have streams coming down, you know, and then I'd go back to sit. Well, I did it one time, two times, three times, and then on the fourth time when I did it, he says to me, "Hey, let me ask you," he goes, "what are you doing? You taking a bath in there?" I go, no, I just wet my hair a little bit. I didn't want to tell him my theory. I wasn't sure if it was correct or not. So, and then when I landed, I looked at myself and I said, yeah, I think it grew a little bit there on that flight, but it really didn't. I was just fooling myself. But yeah, that's what I was thinking back then, that if you fly on a plane at a fast speed and then wet your hair at the same time, that your hair grows faster. You know, opposite of time dilation. So, yeah, but you know, that didn't work. Yeah, let's see. So, I want to mention, a lot of people know this. I want to mention it again for the two people that don't know it. I'm a huge fan of Eddie and the Cruisers, John Caffey and the Beaver Brown Band. I don't know where they came up with that name. I don't know what they were thinking, but John Caffey and the Beaver Brown Band. But I love the movie Eddie and the Cruisers. Love that movie. So what happened was the saxophonist died yesterday. So very sad. What's his name? Michael Antunes. Yeah. He was also in the movie. I think he was the only one from the band, the real band, that was in the movie. So I don't know how many times I've seen them, 5, 6, 7 times live, but I've seen them many times. Probably I've seen them more than, you know, Billy Joel, and I've seen him a bunch of times. But there was a place out in the woods, like far away from my house. So I'm from the city. Me and my friend would drive out into you know, the sticks, and there was a little club there, and you'd go in, there was little, you know, little tables. They'd seat like 4 people. They had chairs around them, and we always got a table right by the stage, and John Caffey would come out and start singing. This is when he was young, you know. Now I seen him, he's a little bit older, and we would go there and we would watch the concert, and then, like, I don't know, maybe a month later we'd go again and again and again and again, and they'd, you know, bring you little food things, finger food. So we'd go there and eat and watch the show, and I loved the music. He's like Springsteen with a much better voice. You know, I don't want to knock Springsteen's voice. I'm just saying that whatever Springsteen has, this guy has a better tuned voice, John Caffey. So yeah. And the saxophone player, really good. I love the saxophone. I love that soulful, jazzy sound, and he was very good. I used to, you know, enjoy his solos. But yeah, he died. Was he 85 years old? Yeah. The time came. But those were good days. You know, those were the days. You know, like, you know that song, Tender Years. Those were the tender years. You know, carefree, young. You had agility, flexibility, speed, strength, all that stuff. And you thought getting old was a long, long, long time down the road, and not really that far down the road. So we would go and enjoy the show, and then at the end, Caffey would give us a goodbye thing, and then he would get off the stage. You'd see him wandering around the floor there, and then he'd leave. I don't think that place is still there. I think I've said it in another video that I think they closed that place down many years ago. But good memories. I have good memories there. You know. I want to. Another one I saw in that same kind of atmosphere. Pat Benatar. So I was up at Hampton Beach, New Hampshire, and I was with a friend of mine, and we were walking by, you know, the area there where all the arcades are, all that. You know, it's really fun. I enjoy that place. You know, you go, they have all these little, you know, store type things. Some of them are arcades, some of them are food places. So as we're walking on one of the posts, I look and I see it says Pat Benatar is playing, and I go, wonder what day that is, and I read further down, and it was that night. So we went inside the box office there, and we asked, "Do you have any tickets available?" And she goes, "Oh yeah, we got tickets." So we bought 2 tickets, and we sat at a table maybe like 10 feet away from the stage, tiny stage. And we were at this table, and we sat with these 2 girls that we didn't know. So it was those 2 girls and me and my friend that were sitting, you know. And first of all, what I remember about the concert is that she didn't do any of the hits. No hits. She did an album back in those days. It was a blues album. And what she did is she sang all of the songs on the blues album, and that was the concert. But after every song, those girls that we were sitting with, they would be like, "All right, Pat," and clap, "All right, Pat, all right, Pat." So I have adopted that, and no matter where I go, no matter who's singing, it could be Elton John, which I did it there, it could be Billy Joel, it could, you know, whoever it is. Doesn't matter, I yell out, "All right, Pat," and clap as homage to those 2 girls that were doing it that night. And people look at me, they're like, he must know somebody in the band. You know, that's what they think. Obviously, Pat Benatar is not Pat. I mean, Pat Benatar. Billy Joel is not Pat Benatar. So when I say, "All right, Pat," and I'm like, you know, applauding like that, the people around me that don't know me, they think, oh, there's got to be somebody in the band named Pat. And that's possible, but I'm not doing it for that reason. I'm doing it to celebrate the past where those girls were yelling, "All right, Pat." You know, it's funny, if it would be a hell of a coincidence if those 2 girls, or one of them at least, is watching this video right now, and she's like, you know, calling her friend Alice. I don't know what her name was, but she's like, "Hey, there's a video I'm going to send you. Somebody, I think, is talking about us," which I am. If you were in New Hampshire, Hampton Beach, right? Late 80s, I think, late 80s, and you saw Pat Benatar there, and she did only the blues hits. I mean, the hits, only the blues songs from that blues album, and you were yelling, "All right, Pat," throughout the entire concert. I'm talking about you. But the odds of that are like next to 0. So yeah, it's warmer than usual. You know, I know today I was up by Vasquez Rock, and it's always hot up there, but it was even hotter than normal. You know, and once again, I didn't bring water with me, so I was really thirsty. I was hiking, and I said, you know what? I should have brought water. End up passing out here, get bitten by a snake, and they'll say, "Oh, he got bitten by a snake and he died." When in actuality, I died because I was thirsty. I always, up there, yeah, that's a lonely seagull. So there's one hundreds of crows flew by, and now here comes a lonely seagull just flapping away. Beach is that way. So yeah, I look for snakes. So far, I've been hiking so many times. I've only run into one rattlesnake in all my time hiking. One rattlesnake near the Hollywood sign. And luckily, it had that warning tail. I could hear that. And I look around, where's that coming from? And then I see the snake a few feet in front, curled up, just looking at me with the thing up, swinging around, making that noise. And I was heading right towards it, and then I heard that, you know, with my bionic hearing, and I stopped. And I went the other way, but this thing was a good size. It was all wrapped up, nice and tight. And that's the only time I saw a snake like that. You know, I've seen other snakes, like the friendly variety, but I've never seen another rattlesnake. And I don't really want to. I mean, if I don't mind, you know, if I'm alert, like if I know it's there. But if I'm like thinking, okay, you know, I'm gonna get back, I'm gonna get a beverage, and then all of a sudden, because my mind is occupied with what, you know, I'm gonna get for a beverage, I stumble right on it and step on it and it bites me, I'm not interested in that. And I was thinking, you know, every hospital in Southern California carries anti-venom. Every single hospital here has it. But how do they know, like, is anti-venom universal? So if any poisonous snake or venomous snake bites you, just, you know, get a vial of anti-venom and it works no matter what the snake. I always thought it was like the anti-venom had a match with the snake that bit you, right? But maybe not. I don't know. And how do they know? I mean, now maybe if you have a camera, you can take a picture and bring it back and go. But in the old days, you had to capture it and bring it back with you. Not bad enough that you got bitten. Now you have to go chasing this thing around and trying to grab it. Get bitten a few more times on the hand, on the thumb, and then really pass out. You know, I don't know how much time you have after you get bitten until you start feeling horrible. You know, is it 5 minutes? Is it 10? Is it an hour? I don't know. I don't know. I know I've been bitten by a spider, and I know a spider's not a snake, but it had venom, and it made my hand feel horrible. It was like all swollen, the finger, and it feels like, what it feels like is like, say you have a fresh razor blade and you cut your hand open with it and then you pour rubbing alcohol. That's what it felt like, that stinging sensation, but internally. I did not appreciate that. Anyway, that's it for now. Ciao.